In this video, we'll see how to set up recommended involvements for check-in. Easter will soon be here. You'll see a lot of people that you don't ordinarily see. That's a blessing, but it may feel more like a curse when you're frantically trying to get crowds of visitors checked into classes. That's where recommended involvements can be a huge help. For those returning visitors who are already in your database, recommended involvements can present your guest with an involvement based on their age or grade, for example, that they can check themselves into. Configuring recommended involvements is fairly simple. You can read a full account in our help article titled Recommended Involvements, but there are 3 basic steps. First, set up the recommended involvement groupings. To do this, navigate to Admin, Involvements, Check-in Profiles. And on this page, click the Manage Recommended button in the upper right. You can add a new grouping by clicking the Add Grouping button. For each grouping, you can determine whether it should be in current use by enabling or disabling it. Set the campus the grouping applies to. Set how the recommendation is determined. The 3 choices are date of birth, grade, and position in family. If you select grade, enter to the right the grade or grade range this grouping is for. If date of birth is selected, enter the birth date range for the grouping. And if position in family is chosen, enter the family positions this grouping is for. You can also include an on-screen indication that the involvement is a recommended involvement. The label referred to here is not the printed label for the child, but rather is a blue label that is displayed after the involvement name on the check-in screen, flagging that this is a recommended involvement. And then finally, you decide what involvements will be recommended for the designated people. As we'll see in a moment, the order in which these are added could become important, so plan carefully before adding the involvements. Second, set up your check-in profiles. From this page, I can return to the profiles page using the button in the upper right. And then select in turn each profile that will use recommended involvements. On the Generals tab, check Enable Recommended button to select this. Once enabled, there will be a few other settings to configure. The start and end times refer to the time period when this feature will be available. Don't be confused, the times do not refer specifically to the class meeting times, but rather to when you want recommended involvements to be available as people check in. And the final setting here, Recommend Based On, allows you to choose between capacity and least attended. When the recommendation is based on capacity, all recommended involvements must have a capacity entered, and guests are added to the first recommended involvement in the grouping until its capacity is reached, and then new guests will overflow to the second involvement, and so on. If, on the other hand, least attended is selected here, you get more of a load balancing effect, with each guest being added to the recommended involvement that has the lowest attendance at that time. Third, and last, make sure that each of the recommended involvements has the join type set appropriately. This setting is on the Involvement Settings General tab and in the Basic Setup section. Here, under the Join Type for Recommended, you can determine when someone checks in whether they will be entered as a guest or enrolled as a member of the class. We encourage you to set up and test recommended involvements in preparation for Easter Sunday. It will streamline the check-in process for returning guests who are already in your database, giving you and your volunteers more time to assist first-time visitors. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for more tips in future TouchPointers.